Welcome back for Transmission 3 of the Liberate Yourself podcast, where we are discussing personal sovereignty in this transitional era. For my first interview, I dive right into the deep end of consciousness with the lovely Clementine. Clementine is an Ascension guide, astrologer, writer, and advocate for highly sensitive people who are aware of this shift in our planet's frequency going on. Aside from writing and acting as a guide, she organizes a community of light workers, empaths, intuitives, and awakened beings to share resources and information, heal themselves and others, and educate about the mechanisms of awakening as this world ascends in consciousness. We get into a deep discussion about growing up with trauma as a sensitive person, our shared experience growing up as self-aware women in Texas, and discuss tactics for how to navigate this new paradigm and work with the fluid nature of life. So let's dive right in. Hi, Clementine. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
So Clementine and I met online, but found out we both grew up in the same region north of Houston, Texas, which is something we'll talk about later. But first, can you just introduce yourself and give a little background on your story thus far and how you got to where you are now? Big question.
Yeah, really broad, big question, but totally. I am not from this planet, I figured out over a long period of time, bumbling through it. But my human story began in a suburb of Houston in the good old South, Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Country, very country, kind of at the intersections of inner city Houston and the more rural kind of country flavors. But yeah, it was really hard for me from the get-go. Texas, you think of cowboys, you think of the South. But for me, it was like very much the good old boy, the misogynistic kind of flavors. And so my dad was really entitled, and he was an alcoholic, highly uneducated, and so was, his parents. So were his parents. So, it started out really difficult. And I was kind of, curious and open and excited and creative and, a very strong-willed female energy. And
that doesn't always go over well.
Not by a landslide. You just can't. Everything is difficult because you're not in your place. You're constantly questioning your place and asking questions and questioning authority. And by design, you're here to create a new system, and so you're questioning everything. But so it was really, really hard in my childhood home. For the first 6 years, I lived with my father. After that, my mom divorced him. So it was I dealt with physical abuse as a very young child, very extreme fear of setting off the monster, if you will. And in a lot of ways, I think that my dad embodies a lot of, the toxic masculinity. He's kind of become, a talisman or a token for me of that Trump mind. And so I think I have a lot of a hand in healing that toxic masculinity by confronting it head on. But anyway, to get back to the story, it was just, really rough. And I've since learned about, highly sensitive people and how trauma disproportionately affects us. We create deeper impressions, we create deeper memories. And so we feel everything 10 times as much, roughly. And so that just really influenced me and throughout the rest of my life, not feeling like I fit in. A lot of my friends or people who I went to school with, I was in the smart classes, so my mom really worked to get me in the smart classes, so that was a blessing. But in those smart classes, I was definitely the outcast. I was heavier than a lot of people. I was, I just thought about things a lot more. Everyone else kind of there's that feeling, I think sensitive people totally feel this a lot, but where you make people uncomfortable, but they won't say it outright to your face. They're just kind of wary. Like
they don't know how to react to it.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't fit into their paradigm or their model of reality yet or ever, so they literally don't know what the accurate response is, and so they just kind of move away from your orbit.
Yeah, like they're just wary of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just kind of like, well, we don't know what to do with that energy, so we'll just play over here.
Yeah.
And they don't tell you to your face necessarily. Some do, some don't, but you're just the weird girl.
And you feel it. It's not even something that's told to your face. You just feel it over and over and deduce that, oh, I'm the weirdo. Okay.
Yeah, and I think we want to talk about that a little more in depth with the highly sensitive people research, which has just liberated me entirely from my self-doubt. But yeah, so that was just really rough growing up in, good old South, And so it was rough going. It was really, really, really rough going. And of course I internalized a lot of their doubt, and so I never fit in. And flash forward to my high school experience, just, I turned to drugs out of exploration, and I wanted to know about the other realms, and that was the only way to access them through, all the layers of pain that I had. So, and by the time I turned 18, I had about 10 brushes with the law. Yeah. It was just, I was, the rebel. I was the one that did not fit in. And so, that kind of notoriety and not fitting in and rebellion came to characterize my life. So I got out. I moved to Austin, which is the most liberated, place in all of Texas.
It's the little island of wonder and, not necessarily having to conform.
Yes. Thank God.
You can be as weird as you want to be.
Oh my gosh, thank God. It's just night and day compared to anywhere else in Texas, exactly like you're saying. Oh my gosh. And so liberation, sort of. I was still not free of my own self-judgment that I had internalized. So I was still very unconscious to a lot of my gifts, though I knew I had gifts, particularly for developing relationships with people deeply, quickly. I knew that I trusted people blindly with open hearts. And these are things that in our world are pretty rare as I've come to learn. But for me, it's just, that's who I am. I'm just pure, open, pure intentions and open-hearted no matter what comes. And that, going back to the alien thing, you know, but did you want to say something?
No, it's true. I just wanted to kind of commiserate, exactly. Agree with you about growing up in Texas. I had the exact same feeling. Like my imagination was just so immense, and exactly what you said. I've been using that to describe how it felt too. I was exploring other realms, like even as a child, like that was more real to me. And then the sort of constrictive, almost, I used to rant in high school too. I was like, this is a fascist regime, just like this totalitarian feel to it. It was this extreme pressure to conform to this is what a woman is, this is what a man is, and that's all there is. And it didn't reflect my inner world at all. So that, and it does, we take on those thought forms and those patterns a lot of times as our own, and it just turns inward. It turns into self-hatred and self-loathing, and the same. I had the same problem with authority. That's always been. I was cycling through these memories this morning, probably like to share some, but that always. From a very early age, I was like, you are not even to my family, I was like, you are not the authority of me. I have my own internal authority that I'm operating through. And so, that, of course, that causes conflict. But I feel like that's definitely, those are the lessons that we, give ourselves in this life in order to sort of exercise those faculties that we have. Otherwise, you wouldn't have any real understanding of what they're about, like what really guiding yourself according to your inner authority, and like having a mission and having a purpose is really about, unless you go up against, you know, the opposition, essentially. So that's all.
Absolutely. And so that, you know, and that's kind of what I was going to wrap up with at the end, is like all my adversity, you know, has taught me my power. So all the pieces of the puzzle combine to show you your power. And that is the point. That is why we have chosen these really difficult scenarios, and we, you know, bringing light in dark places, going into East Texas, you know, in my case, and, you know, holding a very high vibration from the get-go. It's, you know, it's not to compare myself to Jesus, but it's like, you know, Jesus did the same thing. It's like all these light beings go into these dark places and hold this vibration, and it challenges people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and there's an immense pressure on the holder of the vibration. And, you know, that's the nature of the game. And it's tough and it sucks, but pressure makes diamonds, you know.
It does.
You know, and that's the whole thing. So
yeah, on that note, talk a little bit about where you are now and what you do.
Yeah. So just kind of continuing with the storyline a little. So I, you know, college, I got an English degree, bumbled through a lot of friends groups, and I was still largely unconscious to most of my power. I think that was, you know, I really was not spiritual. I was not connected. I didn't have any kind of nudges growing up about any of that. It was just pain, just karmic layering of pain. So I was pretty distanced from my spirit, I will say. Flash forward about 5 years ago, my ex-boyfriend passed away in a car accident. I was with him for 5 years. Yeah, you know, it was a curse at the time, and now it's an absolute blessing. And I believe that he gave me that to awaken me. And so that was really the start of my spiritual journey. And it just really opened my eyes to emotion. It opened my eyes to the deeper inner realms, and that started the process for me.
That's a real tower type of situation in tarot. You know, your foundation is just completely jolted so that you can rebuild your foundation on spiritual grounds and not hubris.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was just so night and day from, you know, I had a great day the day before, just night and day. And there were some other things that kind of developed beforehand that are relevant later. Namely, for about 5 years at that point, I had been in an apprenticeship with a business mentor. I want to talk about apprenticeships if we have time, because I believe in like that is absolutely why I have been able to evolve so quickly. Like the majority of my spiritual development has been in the last 5 years. But having mentors, of course, accelerates it. And so, you know, I was coming off of that apprenticeship, and I stumbled across this art community in Austin, and, you know, I just kind of started applying the business principles that I learned, and that led to, in Austin, you know, I really developed a public image, and I didn't know what I was in for, but it really accelerated. I didn't understand boundaries either, so I was just giving and giving and giving for 3 years, building this art collective in Austin. And we started to accelerate really rapidly. Like we got on the cover of the Chronicle, which is the biggest paper here, and just things started to like really take off. And then the group, I brought misogyny up. I learned about misogyny and the Texas thing, and I just learned about the ignorance of, really it's a national issue, international issue. But I just downloaded all of this knowledge about the feminine. I mean, I just had this immense, powerful transmutation experience. And anyway, brought this to the group. They attacked me. It's the typical village is against you, the pariah situation. So
it's peer reinforced too. Yeah,
it's horrible.
These values,
everybody calling you crazy and all these things. For the past 2 years, this is kind of getting to where I am now. The past 2 years, I have been completely withdrawn and healing. More really intense stuff has occurred in my healing journey since. A lot has occurred. And really, to sum it up, the past 2 years have really been a karmic clearing process. And, you know, and now that I understand the whole framework, I'm like, oh, I see what we're really doing here. But it really didn't become clear until I took that leave from the social scene, from the bar scene, from alcohol, from the partying.
It's such a dead end. My God.
Unless you find other sensitives.
Yes. So sometimes we're there.
Right. Because we're misguided, you know. But my thing is, over those 3 years working with that art collective in my mid-20s, I found it allowed me to cast such a wide net of finding people like me. And so since, I've been the one providing them with spaces and connections. And so I'm actually, because of that, I'm transmuting it into a sensitive person network in a way.
Fantastic.
So yeah, what I'm doing now is I continue to build these community spaces online as well, like with a Facebook group and things. Like, I feel like my whole life has set me up to find sensitive people. I resonate with them, and for whatever reason, I didn't really talk much about, I had a coaching stint for about 3 years. I just worked on coaching. With individuals and helping them navigate their emotions and see blind spots spiritually, and really powerful, accelerating. I didn't even talk about any of my businesses before, but
we will.
Besides the point, I've been just collecting people, and I never knew why I was doing it. It was at great emotional expense to me. I did not always get paid for the really deep spaces I've been holding for people over my life, and it's just it's a higher calling. It's a spreading of a vibration and spaces, so like discussion spaces and really, really high vibration group spaces, which I found are severely lacking in society. And so, Ben Franklin had these things called Junto clubs. I read about this in his autobiography, but they're basically philosophical spaces in society, and we don't have that. And so I've been creating spaces like that where anything goes, nothing is taboo. You can be as weird as you want and you will be accepted. These, I really think people across the country and beyond really should think about hosting these, because we need that. We need more of that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, other things I'm doing is, I inherited a library, an esoteric library.
Oh my God, I'm so envious.
My mentor. Yeah, it was just the most wild thing. My astrology mentor, his mentor, passed away, and so I inherited any book I wanted from his library. He had like 10,000 books, insane amount of books, 30 years, 40 years of collecting, So, I inherited this library. So one of the things I want to do is actually develop, a checkout system and help people. So that's something I've come to learn, is my archetype is very much the wisdom keeper, the scribe, the librarian. That is definitely who I am. I absorb information rapidly and I remember it forever. So one of my main goals on earth is to resynthesize information. So I'm here to write. I'm here to share complex ideas in a way that beginners can understand. So that's what I really am aiming to do most in the world, is resynthesize this very complex stuff. So I do that via blog and newsletter right now. I'm looking into a YouTube channel as well to give it another way. Other things I do is anybody I come across that's a highly sensitive person, I enlist them in the mission. I tell them what's going on, why we're here, what the basics are, and it's really about getting people aware of what's happening. And I've really seen a lot of change, just in their own world from that. So enlisting sensitives in the mission through education. I create healing spaces for others individually. That goes into the coaching background as well as astrological consultation. I really think empowering people with astrology is a huge thing.
Yeah, it's so important.
Oh my gosh, people just are aware after that. They're they understand why they're here.
Well, we're given this map. The cosmos, we gave ourselves this map when we came into this life. So it behooves us to really pay attention to that and to learn about it and embody it. It's not just about the knowledge, knowing it mentally and being able to express it and talk about it. It's about really learning about these archetypes and how they are embodied in our character, so that we can then, become individuated, as Jung said, and carry out our purpose.
Oh, absolutely. And archetypes and individuation, absolutely. The young work. And I would love to go into this topic all its own.
Oh yeah, we'll do it.
Like, oh my God, geek out. Let's talk about geek out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so many people, there's a stigma. People think, oh, like astrology, but there's a reason it's stigmatized, because it's extremely powerful, and the powers that be do not want you to tune in to what is happening in electromagnetically, like magnetic, like these planets affect our orbits, and bring us weather in the form of vibrations, and it is just absolutely critical.
And we're moving out of that time where the church or the governing regime wanted to have that monopoly on communication with the divine, essentially, or that sort of divine knowledge. Same with the tarot. That's why the tarot was outlawed and stigmatized, was because the church and the clergy were the only ones that had that link to God kind of mentality. But that's going away, which is wonderful.
Yeah, we're all our own gurus now, and we're learning the tools and sharing about the tools, and we've all done our own areas of study. So now when we collaborate, we can fill in holes for everyone. But yeah, so definitely astrological consultation, just the basics, like I'm still a student. It's a language.
Totally.
And so it's, but it's really critical, and I'm very gifted. I think I've done this in many lifetimes. So other things I do, consulting on creative projects. I do branding and archetypal characterization. So that's like, I really love helping people come into who they truly are, like character-wise. Are you a fairy? Are you fairies? Or like, there's people who have different like flavors, and knowing those basics can really help people express. Also longer short range project planning. I'm really gifted with creating project plans and stuff, which is a skill people don't have, and then the other work I do is in the shamanic realm. So this is over, growing up in the Houston suburbs, I had no idea, no model for being a healer. I had no model, no awareness. And so over my life, I've come to realize, I'm not a normal person. My emotions charge things powerfully.
Yes.
I'm not always here all the way. I see entities. I feel things that other people can't feel. And that, I think, is directly tied to the highly sensitive person research, which we're about to go into. But work in the shamanic realms includes clearing karma individually and collectively. So sometimes I spend a week processing pain about a world event, or and it's like, it's extremely hard work, and people don't really realize the value of us who are processing these collective traumas through our systems. And so that's a really major way I spend a lot of my time, is just processing the pain of the world. And it's an underrepresented, under talked about thing. But so clearing the karma, anchoring like new ideas. So it's like I get these downloads of new world ideas, and I work to anchor them in this reality via, maybe I send them out to people telepathically, or I anchor them into the actual land of the earth, or working in that realm is really, really important for sensitive people, that we tune in. So anchoring new energies is helping us to evolve. Creating sacred spaces via ceremony and sacred medicine, so facilitating ceremony spaces for people to, whether with medicine or not, is really just people are wanting sacredness.
Yes.
I think sensitive people are here to create sacred spaces. People don't know how to access ceremony. They don't know how to access sacredness. And so I provide, safe spaces for things like that. And then I spend a lot of my time also visualizing the new earth, which we'll get into with Ascension, but that's critical as well. That we shamanic personalities are absolutely, it's important that we, spend time visualizing what we want the world to be like, and using our energy wisely in that way. Like, we can lament the pain all we want and the issues all we want, but critically, we must visualize the new earth and what we want to manifest.
We have to progress and move forward instead of lamenting the past, because it's going away. You have to let go, like actually philosophically let go of it.
So that's kind of like the range of things I spend my time on. I am a community resource, and I've really struggled with shame and guilt about I am not in the capitalist system. I don't get paid for my hours. I don't clock in. I am self-employed, but even employment isn't the word. It's, and
you're doing your work and you're, receiving energy in exchange for that work. It just doesn't look the way that, the past paradigm has put it.
Right.
And that kind of system of capitalism.
Yeah, and I've really struggled with self-judgment, too. It's like, because I do rely on donations. I do rely on people supporting me in an abstract way. Like, people might donate to me. I've had a patron for about 3 years, very meager monthly stipend. And that's the only way I've survived. I would not be here because some of the stuff I've been through, I would not be here if not for donations. And so it's people that understand this old world model, like, the monks, the Mother Teresas of the world. It's like, I am not here to acquire luxuries. I am not here to have a ranch house and retire. I am here in service to God. Exactly. My life is uncertain in the 3D world, but it is certain in the other realms. And that's all I got. That's what I'm here for. And you've been able to manifest support for that in the 3D. Which is awesome. Just critical for my evolution and for, the work I do for the collective. And I just think that we sensitive people sell ourselves short and we don't understand the critical value of what we are offering the world. So I just wanted to touch on that because it is a new model of understanding ourselves. We don't have to fit into the capitalist world. I really believe in patronships. I think we are here in a renaissance period of time. I think that it is critical that we start to manifest patrons. Agreed. Instead of this, let me have a side job and burn out because I'm getting paid $15 an hour. It's like, you are worth $500 to $1,000 an hour. Right. If you have the time and space to, process and actually let what is trying to move through you flow. Yes. I've been really passionate about that with my business as well, because I work with entrepreneurs, kind of the same thing, branding, digital design and getting their online presence out there so that they can do their work. And that's something that I've always preached as well is, don't fall into the pressure of the system to, especially, I really want to move past equating time with money. Oh, which I hate. I know that we're moving past that, but people, it's so ingrained in us too. I catch myself doing it. This is an hour and it's worth, blah, blah. No, it's not. Time doesn't even exist. So let's just drop that. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, to bring back and Patreon is doing a great job. Yeah. With bringing that back for sure. So it's definitely coming back. But that's how artists functioned in the past. And because the societies knew, European society knew that was a very enriching part of society, that it's not something that was trivial. It feeds into the culture and the paradigm and the zeitgeist of the time. And so it was supported financially. And so, I think that we're definitely seeing a resurgence of that. It has to happen, Yeah. Yeah, and I just want to touch on it as much as I can and just interpersonally telling people about them. Because once they have the model of what to go for, you can manifest it. Yep. But it's instead people are focusing on manifesting a good job. Yes. But you can't, you're going to get a prison. Yes. It's a prison of your own making. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I'm very passionate about this. I keep talking over you. It's okay. I have been, when I first started freelancing and building my own business online, what I kept seeing in the online business world was this sort of, it felt like the first tier, people leaving their job and doing, the skill or the talents that they had in exchange for money from people without having a boss in an office. But what essentially
I saw happening is people just creating their own box, like their own prison. And it was running by the same rules, except that they did it to encase themselves in that way. And yeah, it's infuriating. It's like, no, go past that. And I think that we are. I think that what's really exciting for me to see is, your generation, the millennials coming up, and it's like it's like you guys don't even ascribe to that old way of thinking. It's like, no, I'm going to do what I'm good at, and I'm probably going to like diversify and do it in a lot of different ways, like with the gig economy, and figure out a way to like make it work while I'm doing my thing, and then it may be a different thing in a couple years or whatever, and that's fine. But there's definitely, it feels like more of a flow to it, and a more organic sense of being and earning a living that I'm really excited about, and I feel like I've been waiting for so long for that to be reality. So
totally, with your talent, I mean, you're able to just totally help them manifest it in the digital world, and it's like, so you're just waiting for us to be empowered enough to say, I can do this. And
totally,
it
does take bravery. There's a lot of bravery and courage
there, but there's just so much, people have so much pain and shame, myself included. I've done a lot of work on it, but just around being outside the system, there's so much pressure to conform, and we're just so, and I mean, segueing into like growing up in Texas or growing up in conservative places, like it's just so horrible when you go against the grain, because it automatically threatens everyone else. Like, they have to question, do I go against the grain, or do I stay, and is this the best way? And you automatically make people question their own paradigms, and that's threatening to people.
And they project that hatred of themselves, that questioning of themselves back onto you, and it's your problem, it's your fault.
And you're ostracized, and you're belittled, and it's the whole pariah thing, and yeah, it's really, really brutal. But this is the work of pioneers. This has been the only reason why anything is innovated ever, is because we have people willing to endure the ridicule, endure the ostracism, and really push against the grain. And and I just feel like sensitive people inherently, we're here to feel what's wrong with the system and change it. And so it's really a really tough but beautiful place, to a privilege. Like, I feel it's a privilege to feel what I feel and see what I see, that so many people just do not even have the capacity to see and understand. And it's a burden, but absolutely a blessing. And so, but
that's why I say I'm definitely, I don't like to use the word proud, but I see the value in having grown up in such a harsh environment. It's like everyone is pressured to be tough, even the women. And I feel like we aren't really given a lot of space to really understand deep femininity, what the principle of, what the receptive or passive principle is. We even have to, I like that our last conversation, you brought up the idea that women were kind of masculinized.
Yep.
And I've been ruminating on that, or contemplating that quite a bit, and it's true. I mean, there's a lot of pressure to conform to a very like tough alpha, like don't show your emotions, buck up, and
like pantsuit style, and
exactly.
And to me, that's where learning about the Me Too and everything, and talking about this, I've really seen that middle-aged women had it the worst. They just really had none of the hope. Like we're in the same kind of boat where it's like enough hope was present. Like the old structures were breaking down just enough where middle-aged women at this time, like they had no light at the end of the tunnel, and they took the brunt, getting ass slapped in the office and stuff like that. And so I've really seen how middle-aged women have the lowest self-esteem, where the younger women, like we've been taking our power back in certain ways. And it's just that whole era of women having to fit into the male's world, the men's world, and just, and erasing all of our sensitivities and love-based, vibrational-based intelligence. which, you know, it's really, really a shame.
But it's changing.
Oh,
I feel.
absolutely.
So you're still in Texas. What do you, I mean, I know you're in Austin, which can be a little bit not isolating, but it's like a little hub of you know, curiosity and wonder. But when you, I mean, do you feel like that is changing across the state and in conservative areas?
Yes and no. My mom still lives in the town I grew up in, and which is conservative, Conroe, Texas. I, you know, recently been back a few times, and, you know, I go to the grocery store there, and it's like, you know, you have really deeply unconscious people.
Yes.
And some of this goes into the memory of places, which I'm really, really passionate about. Is like places hold memory, and land holds memory. And, you know, East Texas has a really, really brutal history of racism. The KKK originated in Beaumont, I think, and, you know, and it just moved east, and, like, my family was extremely racist, extremely alcoholic, and so Conroe and just East Texas has a really dark history, and, you know, the lynchings and stuff like that, not to mention the misogyny against women, and know your place, woman. So, you know, there's just this really dark cloud over East Texas. And so when I go back, and even, you know, crossing into the county, I become very keenly aware of this kind of fog over the city and, you know, over the area.
Literal and energetic. I mean, there is a nice layer of...
Houston pollution is horrific. Yeah. But true, mostly I'm aware of the energetic fog, but yeah, Houston, it's just dirty, it's grimy, it's old, it's tired, it needs to go. It's
very tired, yeah.
So I can't speak for all of Texas, but, you know, I definitely see ways that sensitives, it's all going back to sensitive people taking back their power by recognizing what we are here to do, recognizing what is happening in energetic realms, recognizing that we are critical helpers of this change. And it's standing up in your communities. It's hosting spaces for yourself and others to raise your vibration. I mean, these are the things that are really going to help. It's just, for a highly sensitive person, it's rough until you know the paradigm, you know, and then it's easier. So.
Yeah, so let's segue into that. Can you kind of tell us your take on what is happening with the Ascension and the collective rise in consciousness worldwide?
Yeah, so the Ascension process is definitely something, I feel privileged to understand the Ascension process. I feel like it is absolutely critical that sensitive people become aware of this movement and this shift in our reality. Yeah, it's really, mostly the history is the galactic history and the awareness of the world beyond our paradigm that we're taught. Is critical. And so we do have an alternate history of this planet. We have had many, many, many advanced societies and cycles of creation and destruction on this planet. We're told, you know, the majority of the world, you know, it's a linear time frame. Like, you know, we start out primitive and slowly we evolve and we are here now. And we're taught that. And it's just so, it's such a lie. It's just flat out, it's a lie. And so we've had many cycles of awakening as humanity and sleep. And it's just like everything in nature. We have a rising cycle and a descending sleeping cycle. And the Vedas have what are called yugas, the yugas system of time. I wrote a post about this. It is absolutely critical that people understand this more cyclical view of time, where we go from golden ages all the way down to dark ages, and we awaken and we go to sleep. And so we have been, as humanity, we have been in a dark age. Everyone, you know, is aware of that. We had the Middle Ages, we had crusades, we've had sickness, war, genocide, everything, just been brutal. And in that way, we've been really disconnected from source, which is the hallmark trait of a dark age, is that we are disconnected from our spiritual origin. We are only aware of materialist perspective. We are not connected to the subtler vibrational intelligence that is accessible to us if we concentrate on it. So we've been there for a while, and now the whole thing is that, drum roll, there are such things as extraterrestrials. We are not alone. Mm-hmm. We actually originate as, our origins are as a genetic experiment by alien races. And, that's a critical piece that needs to really be explored more overtly, I think, in online spaces like Instagram and stuff. And I think it's starting to.
Mm-hmm. The fact that we are a galactic species.
Exactly.
I think what is also happening right now is our understanding of a lot of things is sort of having the veil removed. I mean, extraterrestrials, we used to think like, oh, it's this other physical form that is separate from us somewhere else, but it probably has to do with dimensionality and interdimensional travel. Yeah.
And that's the hugest aha of all of it, is that we are multidimensional creatures. Yes. And so, things like angels and things that humanity has always interacted with, these are other dimensional creatures. And so we create portals to where they overlap. So all dimensions are in the same exact space-time. There is no traveling to another dimension physically. Yeah. You travel with a consciousness, and it's similar to a radio or TV station. You change the channel.
The frequency, which is vibration. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so there's no travel. And that's something that people have a hard time grasping if they're physical only. They're physical based. They're materialist based. They don't understand just change the vibration, spiritually. But that multidimensional awareness is absolutely critical piece, because we open portals all the time, like via prayer, via a song. You can bring in invocation. You can bring in other entities. So you make a portal and they come into this world. And,
in magic, that's what your altar is for. It's a sacred space where you do that vibrational work, like a magnet. Mm-hmm.
But it's like people just, and they call it witchiness and stuff like that, but it's really just multidimensional awareness. And so when you start becoming aware of these kind of, core concepts to higher realms, you become aware that, we have access to a lot more than we're told. And so kind of what's happening at the current moment is that the internet, of course, has facilitated immense awakening very quickly. We have so much information, and it's really difficult to censor because it's just so organic. And so on the materialist plane, we've actually so what's been happening is that the sensitive people have been processing the karma. What I was talking about earlier is transmutation of the pain through our systems, processing the collective pain. It's what's kind of been the case is that the world through the Dark Ages was covered in, I think of it like that fog, that energetic fog, and it's pain. Layers and layers and layers, lifetimes and lifetimes of pain and trauma, from killing each other and violence and lack and starvation. And, that has been lifted because two reasons. One, on the ground, sensitive people have been transmuting it. We chose to come here and process the pain and turn it into light through our systems, breathing in that fog of pain, transmuting it, feeling it, making it light. So that's one end of the equation that's been shifting things. The other equation is that our actual solar system is traveling through space. It's not stationary. And we are currently going through a part of the solar system that is extremely high vibration. We have never felt this before in the past 20, 30 years. We've been in this part of the, space. And it is flooding the planet with high vibration realities, frequencies, let's say. So we have not only that universal, they call them cosmic rays. We are receiving extremely high vibration, what is called photonic light, which this gets into quantum physics. And I think, it's fascinating that everything is converging and dovetailing. But, so we have the photonic belt. That's going on. We're traveling through that right now. So people, are being forced to ascend. They can't even, you're not stuck. You have to go through it.
I was going to say, it's like not even debatable at this point. Like, it's hard to even, you can't ignore it. Like,
everyone knows something's happening,
Yes. To the level that you understand what it is variable, but there's definitely, everyone is collectively feeling it for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, aside from the rays, generally speaking, we also have, the extraterrestrial forces. So going back to the galactic history, Earth had been taken over by parasitic entities. Now, this is a paradigm of energetic nutrition. So it's a type of entity. It's not inherently evil necessarily. We want to move past dualism,
right?
Of bad and good and
polarity.
Versus, polarity.
Because polarity is in the 4D, and that's kind of one of the points I'm understanding of moving into the 5D is to transcend that.
Absolutely. So. And that's that's the whole thing, is moving past other. There is no other. We are one race trying to awaken ourselves through different expressions. Yeah, and so the non-dualism piece is really critical, but so we have these what are called archons, Dracos, reptilians. We have this parasitic race that enslaved the Earth. And so the poor Earth herself, has been enslaved. And so, but we're finally, it's this big, grand story play where we're supposed to learn that we are powerful. And that's the whole thing. It's not inherently evil. It's so that we will learn our own power and create and express against it. And so what's happened is that we have extraterrestrial races that have actually eradicated their strongholds in the last 20 years. Carlos Castaneda talks about these. This is very widely understood, especially in shamanic paradigm communities or contexts. But
in a cult tradition, for sure.
Yeah, it's like, and people are like, oh, aliens, demons, and it's like, no, dude, that's the issue. If you don't understand that piece, you don't understand much, because our whole world was based on that paradigm. And so we have these psychopathic people who have been keeping us in a low vibration state so that they could feed off of our psychic energy releases, such as crying and raging. And so we have all this torture going on so that they could feast off of our pain.
Yeah, fear pain is a big one.
Yep. So, but everything's converging. So we have people on the ground clearing up the pain and the trauma. We have extraterrestrial races helping us in any way they can via channel. We channel them. We receive information from them. Books, they give us, and then we have the photonic belt. So basically everything's converging to bring us back to the fifth dimensional consciousness. Now, how to make it better understood by the layperson is that, or people who don't know about this, is that fifth dimensional consciousness is Christ consciousness. Jesus Christ held fifth dimensional consciousness. It's also called unity consciousness. It's called non-dualism, beyond other, so non-polarity. This is basically, I am you, you are me. When I go out, I leave my house, I take it as an exercise. Can I move past these initial judgments I have of people that separate me from them? Can I see the divinity in every being? Can I see that they are me? Can I give them love? Whether they're a homeless person that scares me, or, a male that's a little too aggressive with asking me for my phone number, or things, can I see past my initial separateness and embody Christ consciousness, meaning everyone is love? And, that's the challenge of holding this higher vibration. So it's the second coming, if you will. It's just the return of the vibration of unity, beyond separateness. And that's what's happening right now.
And it feels like more of an open invitation for the people, it's an invitation to everybody, it sounds like, and it feels like. And there are those of us that are more sensitive that are doing the really hard work. And I did want to touch on, I mean, you did talk about, clearing collective karma. And I feel like, do you think, this kind of came to me, that us processing through our own, in this life and, probably past lives, our own traumatic karma is part of, holding and processing the collective karma, because that's how I've been experiencing it. I've always been a very inward looking, willing to do shadow work, willing to transmute energies. But I would say in the last 3 months or more, it's been so rapid. And you're right. It's not like I'm not clairaudient or clairvoyant. I'm more like claircognizant. So when you talk about the right books will come my way, the certain thoughts and knowledge will come my way. I'm like, okay, I'm being guided by that. And I think everyone, has their own way that they're being guided, but I'm definitely being guided in these very direct ways to here, do your shadow work. Here, learn this. Here, and it's very clear, and it's just happening. If I go back in my journals, because I think everyone, one big tip: keep a written journal somewhere, because it does help you orient in the linear timeline still, right? And it does help you keep data on the progress that's happening. Because otherwise, if it's right here in front of our face, we don't always realize how far we've come and how much we're evolving. So one little aside. That's a really good tip for everybody. But
definitely.
Yeah, I've just gone back in my journals, even from the beginning of the year. I'm like, whoa, I've done so much work and I feel like a completely different person. Every week is a different shedding of old thought patterns. And and when we say, I do want to kind of explain what shadow work, transmuting, working through karma, the way that it is an umbrella term, and I feel like it's very personal. It's very different for everyone, the methods that you take. But essentially, it is turning your vision inward, getting very, very intimate with the past, the memories, the patterns, the thought forms that you've been running on, the code essentially that you've been running on all of your life. And you kind of notice it because there are these patterns, these habits, these things that keep coming up. And that is kind of what happens is, and that's what astrology is helpful with. It'll show you some of the patterns that you're working on, because it will, our lives are cyclical, and those patterns will start coming back around and smacking you in the face and until you learn the lesson. And so when something like that happens, and you're like, this again? That's kind of the marker that I realize, I'm here again. That's what you look at. And that's what you really go deep into a meditative state. I've actually done, I want to take a second to plug Benabel Wynn. She is this amazing metaphysician and tarot instructor, but she has a course called Tarot and Shadow Work for unearthing your archetypal power. Cool. So essentially what shadow work is about is diving deep inside of yourself and moving through that darkness, because that is where your true power is. The things that you are the most afraid of are the biggest teachers for you, and that's where you unearth that gold of what your power is, and then you can move forward owning that power. Instead of letting it run you. So I just wanted to so anyway, finishing up my little rant, I feel like that stuff is happening to it's like a master's class, earning a PhD.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is kind of sensitive people, we've felt these rumblings for years, and we've been doing this work. And really the collective is just starting that journey. And so the design of it is that, we've and that's the hallmark of sensitive people, is that we can sense the rumblings, and we can sense changes in the tide and, and tremors in the collective before it starts to become mainstream. And, so it's we've in a way been designed to kind of wake up, because that is the process of waking up. Going into your pain. So when you say going into yourself, for me, shadow work starts with pain.
Yeah.
Because we come from that pain paradigm. So to me, it is focusing, like, going into your pain. So it's like, you know, the actual process of experiencing your pain so that it can be cleared. So, you know, for me, for a long time, that was sitting in, you know, the lack of parental, my father, lack of that, you know, my mom, I didn't even talk about her, but she's a total angel. And, you know, but the healing work was around feeling my not self-abandonment, but in that paradigm, feeling the abandonment.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes it looks like you're rocking yourself, like a mother to a child all in one. It really is going into the hardest things you experience and, you know, and nursing it. It can be a week of just bawling. Yeah. It can be a week of staring at the ceiling, thinking about it, you know, and but it brings you jewels. I mean, being alone, like creating spaces, you know, I spend hella time in the tub, bawling my eyes out about things, you know, and feeling the collective pain. And to your point about accessing the collective pain through individual, that is absolutely the case. It's designed that we're all covering certain areas. So, you know, I'm a white woman. You know, I'm helping process the pain of misogyny and the female disempowerment. However, I would not be able to process the pain of a black woman or a Hispanic woman. We all have unique pieces of the puzzle that we are healing. I'm also healing rural consciousness.
I hadn't even thought about that, but yeah, you're right.
Like we're all holding certain pieces that are part of the equation. So it's like we're supposed to heal and empower the disempowered parts of us. And so it's really, there is no separation, you know, and this is what sensitive people, we have access to these consciousnesses that other people can't access. So yeah, it's like where my trigger experience might be female disempowerment. Eventually, if I keep moving into it, I become the collective female mind crying about disempowerment, purging that emotion through my system. Then I become the world, like the earth, Mother Earth as the female. Then I become the gods and goddesses beyond, and it's like, it really, our own pain is how we access. So I am processing those pieces for the collective. There is no separation. So, yeah, and I think a lot of people think, I'm going to go in my corner and process my own shit. You really are helping the world.
By doing that, it's not selfish or self-involved.
Exactly. And that's what people, I think, sensitives need to understand, is that is helping everything.
And I feel like, especially in more conservative places, we have been conditioned to not do that. It's a very external society, period, but we're definitely taught to look outward and not inward, and to, essentially not take care of ourselves, like true self-care. Yep. But it's very, very important for everybody, for the collective, to do that. It's not selfish.
Yep.
This is all, amazing, and I definitely want to dive deeper with you on future episodes. But as we're kind of wrapping up the last few minutes, do you have any, this is a podcast essentially about cultivating personal sovereignty. Do you have personal, or would you like to share your personal methods of staying centered in these times and navigating from your inner authority while the chaos spins around us, for others?
Yeah, and I think because we're all struggling with that, it's such a good topic. Personal sovereignty is, it's partly with the fifth dimensional consciousness coming in. We were talking about that parasitic paradigm, power over others, enslavement of others. That was the norm, and that was the dark ages. But as we're moving into unity consciousness, if I enslave you and feed off of you, I'm hurting myself, And so if I diminish your power, I'm diminishing my power. And so this new vibration of unity is coming in. And so what personal sovereignty means to me, that's the hallmark of unity consciousness, is everyone is a sovereign being. Everyone is their own God. Everyone is their own leader. And it is critical that any teaching, empowers them as the guru. There is no power over others. And that's what personal sovereignty is, is we're losing that ability to have power over others or to have power over us, where others can't have power over us. And so it's this movement toward, and with power comes responsibility, right? So we're all of a sudden taking responsibility for our creation. And every element of our creation, all the abuse that was suffered, all the ways that you have consented to being disempowered. These are things that we are now being called to take responsibility for, which to me is absolutely critical in the discussion of personal sovereignty, the law of attraction and how as souls we create our life before we get here.
And it's a constant, co-creation process. Yeah. So what does that look like on a daily basis? What are some, even mundane practices that you take in order to, stay centered and...
Yeah. So actually, I've really struggled with centeredness and groundedness. I wanted to touch on this a bit, but and I think as sensitives who are traumatized, this will resonate. But going on the physical abuse I suffered when I was young, I shut down my body. In a lot of ways, I have struggled with disembodiment, and what that's also called is dissociation. And so groundedness and centeredness has historically been a huge challenge for me because I dissociate, where my spirit is floating outside of my body. And so part of my process has been learning how to ground, learning how to connect with the land, embody the consciousness of the land, and, as a sentient being. And so to me, that is one of the most critical things, is having a relationship with Gaia and having a relationship with the land that I walk on, asking permission before I do sacred work, with having that dialogue with the land. And the thing, though, is that recently, I've been pretty unraveled, and I've been exploring, this is part of my shadow work, is, and it might have been Pisces season, who knows, it's part of the Ascension process, but I'm in my Saturn return, and coming out of my dark night of the soul, one can hope, please let me be coming out of it, but I'm still in it, I'm tapering out. So part of my process, and I think this will be helpful for people, it's been to allow for the chaos, allow myself to be ungrounded and feeling into what that feels like. There's a permission there. It's like, I know I should be doing, more grounding work more often, but I've been kind of feeling into what it is to be not centered. And that has been really helpful for me. Like, for instance, one of the main things I struggle with is correspondence, like messaging people back. I have so many relationships that it's really, really hard for me across platforms. And, I'm bombarded all the time just with people checking in on projects and things like that. And it's like just allowing that to be piled up. Because my process, I need deeper space with myself. It's prioritizing my depth of experience, which, cocoon, it looks like a cocoon. Sometimes it'll take a month before I can get back to my emails or text messages. And, to the modern world, that's social suicide. To me, it's my process. And so, so I really feel like giving permission to be unraveled is part of it. And it's part of conquering your challenges. So I wanted to get that across because to me that is sovereignty. Like, my process is sometimes I'm very out and I'm very expressive and I'm posting online. And then I have 2 months where I'm processing something so deep that I can't really socialize that much. And I used to shame myself so much for it, and now I'm more coming into that's my creative process, and I do what I can. So, you know, figuring out the ways that you work and figuring out the ways that your creative process works and owning that, you know, is sovereignty to me. It is owning the way my natural rhythms are working or not. That's my, you know, that's my sovereignty. I don't have to be available 9 to 5 and get back to you in 2 business days, and, you know, these traditional, you know, stigmatized things. No, I'm not a professional. I'm not a capitalist mind. I'm a shamanic healer trying to bridge into a new world. Like, sometimes that looks messy.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that piece across.
That's really beautiful. And what I'm hearing, and that I agree with, is you have to create that space for yourself.
Yes.
In order to process and in order to integrate all of the experiences that you go through. You're right, it's not about clocking in and I do the same thing with my business. I've always been really adamant about that, is that, you know, I'm going to probably like overestimate how much time something is going to get to you, because I don't know what's going to happen in the next week. I am Pisces. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know how I'll feel in a week. But, you know, you have to like that was my way of like giving myself space and still being able to deliver what I said I was going to. So it's not like it's irresponsible to take time for yourself, but just find ways of carving that out in how you function. Right. Is really, really important. It doesn't mean you're a flake. That's the...
Exactly. You know. Exactly. And that goes back to that nonconformity. We are really working the uphill battle to destigmatize the creative process and the passive roles and the more fluid nature of life. And, and I think, I mean, it's beautiful to hear your experience as well. It's like we all struggle with this, and providing space in our scheduling and in our projects, and being very generous. Like, sometimes I will not schedule anything for a week because I know I need to recover from something. It's like, otherwise we get frazzled and intense, and we are not centered as much as we can be. So
you don't do your best work that way. I actually love just having an entire week where I don't have anything scheduled. It doesn't mean I do nothing necessarily, but it means that every day when I wake up, I can intuit and, you know, kind of follow guidance. What needs to happen today? What do I need to do today? Sometimes that is nothing. Sometimes that is just processing and reading something new, or being out in nature is my big one.
Yeah, totally. I call that flow space, or otherwise I call it nothing time. Which is just a critical, like, sometimes I just smoke a bowl and lay and stare at the ceiling, and that is my activity.
Exactly. You know? I am doing that.
Right. And so that goes into left brain, right brain, and it's really, you have to cultivate personal space as sensitives especially. So one episode we should do on highly sensitive people and just explore that, because so there's so many tools in the toolkit of HSPs that I think people need to know. So.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Clementine, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for being my first guest. So real quick, while we wrap up, I am definitely going to put all links to your work and where people can find you in the show notes, but do just tell people where they can find you and connect with you online.
You know, Instagram is a great way to connect with me, at The Art of Clementine, which is kind of a temporary in-between brand right now. But the Ascension Facebook group I've made recently, and it's because I found so many people that don't know other people in this process. So it's like a place to discuss, you know, sensitive, mystical experiences and things. And it's a very safe space, and
share resources. You know, that's what's been nice about it so far, is sharing really high quality resources.
Yeah, like, I think that, you know, there's so much out there, and it's like when somebody posts something to like personally recommend, it just helps kind of clear away all the noise. One of the main things to get across for me is that I work in a very old-fashioned way. I focus on long-term, deep relationships. So, you know, you can follow me on my blog or on Instagram if you're just wanting to kind of keep up. But really, like, I worked within long term relationships. So I'm building things here. I'm building a network. I'm building, connections with other people who are building networks, and it's basic coaching, and it takes the form of whatever it needs to. It's very fluid. Sometimes it can be more guided, vibrational connections with your higher self or what have you. But yeah, so personal consultations. But my point is that you don't go and schedule on my website. You send me an email. What are you looking for? I want to hear from personal, like the depth of things. So yeah.
And then you can customize your services according to that. It's lovely.
Exactly. But the blog and Instagram is for sure, if you're just interested in general, that's the best way to kind of like stay on the fringes and just keep up with what I'm doing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. And yeah, again, all of those links and information are going to be in the show notes. But until next time, I'm sure there will be many next times.
I know. I was like, let's do more.
I know we just like opened a Pandora's box here.
This is the kind of stuff I want to be talking about. Like, I crave this kind of discussion. So I'm so grateful to you making space and, just having the curious mind. It's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Can't help it. All right, Clementine. Well, until next time, take care out there. And to everyone else, take care out there as well. All right, guys, this was a fun and deep dive into a new way of thinking about ourselves as humans, light workers, sensitive people, and empaths who are holding and processing these new energies. Clementine is a real powerhouse on a mission to build community and connections with all of you that could use it, and let's be honest, who couldn't? To get in touch with her directly about one-on-one coaching, send her an email at theartofclementine@gmail.com and give her some background into the experiences you're having so she can custom tailor her offerings for you. Also follow her on Instagram at The Art of Clementine, and find the Ascension Facebook group by going to Facebook and searching for Ascension info in groups. Her website is at theartofclementine.com, where you can get on her mailing list. And since we recorded this interview, Clementine has started a wonderful in-depth astrology blog called Astrobast that you can check out at astrobastet.wordpress.com. Definitely get on her list there to get thoughtful and well-researched astrological updates to help you navigate a self-possessed life. All of these links you can find in the show notes, by the way. Thank you so much for listening and being here on this journey with me, guys. You can go to liberateyourselfpodcast.com to get on the list so you get all future transmissions straight to your inbox. And if you like what you're hearing, go to iTunes and give the show a rating and good review. This really helps it gain traction. I also want to invite you to become a patron of the show and part of this evolutionary community through Patreon. Patrons of the Liberate Yourself podcast receive purposeful spiritual content to help you cultivate your own sovereignty, as well as free astrology and tarot readings with me monthly. Go to patreon.com/liberateyourself to become a supporter of the podcast and part of a growing community. Until next time, guys, take care out there.